Thomas Roberts, we're going to be bringing you live coverage throughout all of today's special events commemorating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. Helping to kick off our special coverage, Chris Matthews, host of MSNBC's Hardball. He's live in Washington, D.C. this morning at the Lincoln Memorial. That is where all of today's events will take place. Chris, good morning. Let's set the scene for everybody, because as we understand the program for today, we have 3 presidents, a host of current and former and future civil rights leaders and politicians taking the stage. Truly a diverse program, but we all look back 50 years ago to those vivid images that still inspire today.
Well, you know, Thomas, this is going to be a hot day. It's not that hot. It's sweltering today, but not as bad as it can get here in Washington. It's drizzling right now. It may clear up. But I expect there's going to be heated rhetoric today. This country's divided right now, heavily divided, sharply divided between the no's out there, the ones who rejected African-American president, had rejected him from the day he was elected, the day they heard he might be elected, and the other half of the country rather disillusioned, rather disenchanted, almost pouting with disillusionment right now. And gee whiz, why can't this be greater? Why is this not better right now? We have an African-American president, but things aren't happening. It's almost dull with not things happening. So I think that combination of frustration and rejection are going to clash today. And I think the heat of the rhetoric today is going to be much sharper even than it was 50 years ago.
We do have an interesting statement coming from former President George W. Bush, releasing a statement, and as we're looking there, the Martin family there under that umbrella, as they all assemble. Our country, this is from President Bush, our country has come a long way since that bright afternoon 50 years ago, yet our journey to justice is not complete. Just to the east of the Lincoln Memorial, where President Obama will speak on Wednesday, stands the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. There on the National Mall, our president, whose story reflects the promise of America, will help us honor the man who inspired millions to redeem that promise. And President Bush refers to the promise of America, Chris, that's reflected in President Obama. When we think about that, how significant does that weigh on this presidency, that basically Barack Obama really personifies, comes to life as the dream of MLK?
Well, good for George W. Bush. I thought it was a nice statement. I'm not going to question that. But to say this, at least back in 1939, when Marian Anderson had to sing here, "My Country 'Tis of Thee," rather than at the Constitution Hall, because they said the reason was she was black. At least they were honest back then. Today in American politics, you have people like Donald Trump, who hangs around with Mitt Romney, talking about the president being an illegal immigrant, basically being a con artist on a street corner. You've got people talking about nullification of the law of the land. You got people talking impeachment like Coburn. You got Ted Cruz out there. They never say their problem with Obama is that he's black. But look at the pattern. The pattern is rejection of his legitimacy at the first point, saying he's not really here legally. It's rejection of the law he had passed, the landmark bill passed in 2010. It's an attempt to impeach him on no grounds. At least the Daughters of the American Revolution knew what they're saying, and they said it out loud. He's black. She's black. She can't sing here. These guys today use all the techniques of nullification and talking about illegitimacy and accusing the president of being a crook, basically, for even being president, because he's here illegally. And then they talk about impeaching him on grounds they can't even come up with. At least in the old days, they were honest about it. Today, they're not. And that's how rough it's going to be today, I think.
And you talk about the roundabout ways that those on the right want to try to blow that dog whistle about race. Let's talk specifically, though, about the president and race, because there are certain moments, Chris, in and before his presidency that forced him to talk about that very issue. However, he's been a lot more vocal in the last couple of months, but this is not an easy topic for him to address. Do you think now that in the time that he has left as president, that he needs to be more forceful on the issue of race, and today can really be the catalyst, this type of speech on this anniversary, the 50th anniversary, to help bring Dr. King's message full circle?
Name another president in our history. He's 44, the first 43. Name one of the 43 that had to show his papers. Who had to show his papers. That's what he had to do. He had to show he was legitimately an American born in Honolulu. He had to produce his papers. That's how embarrassing it got on the right. how racist it was. There's no doubt what they were doing. They forced him to get out of his car and show his driver's license. That was basically what they were doing to this guy. They humiliated him into doing that. And now they're talking impeachment. They're talking nullification of his landmark bill, which every Democratic president has fought for, believed in, promised. This guy delivered. And a lot of Republican presidents have thought about it, like Teddy Roosevelt and Richard Nixon. He wasn't the only guy that wanted health care. He's the guy that got it. And because he got it and put some points on the record book, they're trying to erase it. That's what it's about. It's called nullification. It's that serious if you listen. If you don't listen and you talk like George W. Bush and act like everything's fine, you don't hear or see anything. But if you pay stark attention to what's been happening the last 4.5 years, you see the game. Half the country has rejected this guy as president through the voices of their leaders. And maybe it's 47% they don't like, but it's about 50-50 right now. And the trouble is, those who do believe in him are pouting right now. And pouting is not a good political